If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. Kelly's going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is indeed lighted. It's to my left, your right, if you happen to be watching on YouTube. You can watch YouTube right now. Catch the show live. Go to YouTube. Go to the SHR Media channel, the TV channel. You can watch live right now. Also, you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page, and you should be watching live right now on SHR Media, on Facebook, on YouTube, live. Right here, from the belly of the beast, Sacra Tomato, Fornicalia, and yes, today is Tuesday. It's September 26th, the year of our Lord 2017. And boy, do we have some crazy stuff for you tonight. I have, courtesy of God and a few other bits of pieces of electronics, coming up, a conversation with media magnate Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit Media fame. I suspect we might be talking about some things regarding the NFL, perhaps the Dallas Cowboys, perhaps maybe even the GOP. I don't know, perhaps maybe even North Korea, and other bits of buttery goodness, kind of like that. It's going to be a good show. Some of the best late night conservative talk you're ever going to find here on the face of the planet. And if I'm not mistaken, oh boy, fingers crossed at this point, it's a new board, it's a new day. Do we have Dan Butcher on the line?
Hey, BZ, how the hell are you tonight, my friend?
Oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, it works. Oh, my God.
Now, here's the true question. Let's ask everybody in chat how I sound. Because the other night when you and Sean called me in the middle of the night and woke me up, we were still playing with it. So everybody in the chat, how does the call sound?
Well, okay, first thing
Mary says she can hear both of us. It's accomplished, BZ.
Oh, my God, that's absolutely astounding. Okay. It's a brand new board. It's a brand new day. This is, I'm techno-incompetent, not quite to the lower levels of, the person that knows we all love, Sackheads Clint. I'm not quite that low in the dungeon, so to speak. But, oh, my God, that is great. Here's one thing I also found out about the board. The output from my laptop for sounds and whatnot, holy crap, did I ever have to turn that down. Evidently, the gain into the board from the laptop, I had to jack that sucker up quite a bit in order to get people to hear it. But honest to God, now you can hear me, is that correct?
I can hear you, and I'll tell you this, it does sound a lot different on the phone with you than it used to. So it is a little bit different and getting adjusted to it. But I can hear you loud and clear, man.
Okay, what I think you're hearing is the microphone on the laptop over here to my right. My guess is you're not hearing it quite as clear as you used to.
No, not at all.
Okay, well, we're going to try to solve that with VoIP, which is Voice over Internet Protocol, which is what a lot of businesses and agencies and things like that have transitioned over to. The other thing I have to say is hello to everybody in chat. Obviously, Dan's in chat, Mary Brockman's in chat, Jersey Joe's in chat, and Mike is in chat, and 3 unidentified viewers are in chat. So, Dan, now that I've got you here, did anything happen this past Sunday that you might feel motivated to speak about in any fashion? Any thoughts about that?
Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to talk about right off the bat something what was actually the big story from Sunday that nobody's talking about.
Okay.
And that was the fact we had a mass shooting at a church in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
On Sunday.
Yep.
We had a Sudanese immigrant named Emmanuel Sampson who murdered someone in the parking lot, and then he walked into the Burnett Chapel Church of Christ and just started shooting up the place indiscriminately. Folks, the victim who died was a 39-year-old woman and mother of 2 by the name of Melanie Smith. And according to her family members, she was a godly and compassionate woman. Folks, this lady was killed for nothing else other than the fact she was attending church on a Sunday morning. And then Sampson went into the church and wounded 6 other people, including the pastor, before an usher stopped him. Now, the hero in all this was a 22-year-old young man by the name of Caleb Engel, who was pistol whipped in the face during the confrontation. He struggled with Sampson until he brought Sampson under control, and actually Sampson ended up shooting himself. And then get this, folks, Engel then went out to his car, grabbed his own firearm, and stood guard over the wounded shooter until police arrived. Now let me tell you something, the little side kicker to this story. Okay, you might remember not too long ago we had a young white male walk into a predominantly black church and shoot the place up, killing several people. Yep. And we know what a national sensational story that was.
That was Dylan Roof.
This was a young black man that went into a predominantly white church and shot up the place. Folks, the New York Times put this shooting on page 14. Think about that for a second. The New York Times put this shooting on page 14 on Monday morning. So that ought to tell you that kind of sets up the stage for the coverage that you have seen from CNN, ABC, MSNBC, all the usuals in the legacy media. And folks, I will tell you right now, there are media outlets on our side of the aisle, in conservative media, in new media, that have not even covered this story because they have been completely obsessed with the NFL protests that took place on Sunday and Monday night.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And it was buried on page 14 in the New York Times, as you rightly point out. Mm-hmm. Can you ascribe that to anything particular? I mean, you can't really make anything out of that, can you?
Oh, no, not at all, BZ.
No,
not at all. You know, you have a Sudanese immigrant who, we're still trying to figure out if this was actually a terrorist attack. This guy targeted this church for some reason. This wasn't an indiscriminate attack. He targeted this church. He went in. He knew what he was doing. This wasn't some guy that had lost his mind, gone crazy, just happened to be walking by. Hey, you know what? I'm going to shoot this place up and kill a bunch of white people. He planned this out. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment type of attack.
Correct.
So as we dig deeper and continue reporting on it, I think we're going to find that there were some ulterior motives here in this attack carried out by Mr. Sampson. But folks,
if you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I will tell you the fact that, You had the Trump administration releasing new travel guidelines on the travel ban, adding more countries to the list. The fact that this was a Sudanese immigrant, of course they're going to bury this. It doesn't fit the narrative. Anytime you see something that doesn't fit the narrative, it gets buried. BZ.
Well, of course it does, and that's why. There's so much pushback these days, and that's at the top of my blog. I am pushback. I have to be pushback because everything else is going way over the top in terms of what I call the American media maggots. Everything that's done, or in this case, not done, is absolutely 100% purposeful. Now, maybe it was bread and circuses on Sunday, but you have an honest-to-goodness point, and it connects in terms of, just as you indicated, you have a Somali who's responsible for killing people just like Dylan Roof, just every bit as egregious.
Yep.
My guess would be every bit as racially motivated, although do you think any people, and do you think journalistas are going to try to look into that aspect in any way, shape, or form? Of course they're not going to do that. That won't do that.
No,
so Trump expanded the travel ban.
No.
And this occurs over the weekend, and it's just going to continue. It will remain unabated. It's not going to stop. Who can you trust anymore? We're running out of institutions, newspapers, media, individuals, organizations, and our government. We're running out of things to trust. And that is all purposeful, too. I'm going to wrap it up. I'll summarize it right now. Cloward Piven, that's what the leftists are all looking for. Everything is sort of... and it's an adjunct to all of that. They want you and they want the truth smothered because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the narrative. It's page 14 narrative.
Well, BZ, yeah. Well, here's the thing, BZ, and you and I will talk about this. There's a reason why the ratings, and we'll talk about this when we get into the football, the NFL, but there's a reason why ESPN's ratings are falling. There's a reason why the NFL ratings are falling. There's a reason why the circulation of the New York Times is going down in print. There's a reason why their web traffic is starting to tank. There's a reason why people are starting to, in droves, turn to new media, and particularly conservative media. And that is because we are now the stewards of investigative journalism. We are now the ones practicing actual journalism. We're getting out, reporting the stories, reporting the information. I tell everybody, if you're a journalist, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're damned if you report the story, you're damned if you don't. But we have to pursue the facts. We have to pursue the stories. My own website. There's a reason why. Over the last, good Lord, 8 years now, pushing 9 years, that we've gone. From 59 readers the first day to over 15 to averaging over almost 16 million page views a month. Now that's staggering. Now, we're not a big website. We're not one of the big boys, but we're not one of the small ones either. But there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why our readership continues to grow. There's a reason why the listenership on High Plains Pundit Radio continues to grow. Why the viewership on High Plains Pundit TV continues to grow. It's because people are hungry. They're hungry for actual news. They're for actual information. They're hungry for the truth. They're tired. BC, they're tired of the bullshit. Bottom line, they're tired of the bullshit, and that's what we got this weekend. You're talking about you had news anchors on Sunday morning, openly saying, hey, the White House is upset with us because they know that we're going to talk about this story. Well, of course, that's all they focused on. All they focused on was what Trump said. They didn't focus on why Trump said what he said. There's a big difference there. Trump was asked his opinion on something, and he gave it, which he often does, and then it morphed into what we saw on Sunday and Monday. And quite honestly, by all appearances, is backfiring in the face of the NFL.
Dan, it's not just backfire. By the way, folks, we're talking to Dan Butcher. He is the owner of the High Plains Pundit Media, and he's got the media covered in print in terms of the website. You can read it. You can watch TV there. You can go and listen to radio. He carries my show as well, and God bless him for that. But it's absolutely true. This is all dovetails together. The thing about Trump is they always make sure that they take everything out of context. When you read the full story of whatever it is that he says, and don't get me wrong, he says some off-the-wall shite. He certainly does. Guilty. But a lot of the stuff that he says makes sense, and a lot of what he says is exactly what you're thinking and I'm thinking, and no one else, many instances, has the guts to verbalize that. And the media, the Democrats, a great deal of the Republicans, they don't know what the fuck to do with a man like this. So it's all sluices open, the attacks are on, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until he goes away, or until they somehow try to impeach him, when the chances of that are twofold, slim and none.
Yeah, and I'm going to do this real quick, and just to appease me here for a minute, because I'm going to rant about this for a couple of minutes.
That's
real
what
quick,
I want
BZ.
to hear. You bet.
Because I just been dying for this. I want to remind everybody of something. The American flag. It represents a living country, and itself, it's considered a living thing. It states that no disrespect should be shown to the flag, and when it's taken down, it should be placed into waiting hands and arms. Some of the code is honored in the breach. It urges against using the flag on clothing or in advertisements, but it captures America's passion for its flag. Now, folks, at times of crisis, 9/11, World War I, World War II, the phrase rallying around the flag, it's not just a figure of speech. In one survey after the September 11th attacks, 80% of Americans reported that they were displaying the flag. Folks, this is why the NFL kneelers are cutting against the American cultural grain, besides picking the wrong target on the merits, okay? Folks, the American flag isn't the Confederate flag. It's the opposite. Our military fights under it. The flag drapes the caskets of the fallen, and it's folded in a solemn ceremony at military funerals with practically every movement fraught with religious and patriotic meaning. Folks, this is not to be trifled with unless you intend to insult the country.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
For which it stands. BZ, the problem with the NFL is not just Donald Trump, but the greater dilemma that the league's reason to be has become predicted on a labyrinth of lies. Folks, audience is not young and loyal as hyped, but even if fading, still largely reflects the majorities in red state America that have no patience whatsoever for gratuitous insults to the national anthem and the flag. The NFL, ESPN, liberals, progressives, take your pick, they've never grasped the political truism that you never insult your base and core supporters. Sympathetic CNN talking heads and the solidarity of progressive political activists will not turn around sagging revenues, but will only contribute to them. And thus, that's why you see the falling ratings in the NFL, and of course, the falling ratings with the ESPN. ESPN is projected to lose over $300 million. The NFL is projected to lose over $200 billion with a B. With a B, folks. Now, one thing about all of these protesting players, they do not come across as informed, brave social justice warriors on the barricades of dissent, but as mostly unable to explain to their fans precisely why and how they are mistreated, or why America is a flawed society that does not deserve, deserve the respect. Folks, these are multi-millionaire players. Please tell me how these NFL players are being oppressed. Please tell me, how are these NFL players being oppressed? Okay? What do they actually know about the violence in the inner city communities, such as Baltimore or Chicago? And folks, let's talk about this. If ethics and values are the players' issues, why over the last decade has there been an increase in player off-field violence and arrest, often marked by well-publicized violence? Think about that. These are not the typical things you saw, little petty things, burglary, drug offenses stuff, but flat-out violence against women, okay, murder, rape, et cetera, And I want to think about this for a second, too, okay? Let's talk about Donald Trump for a second. Okay, did Donald Trump contribute to any of this? Folks, he no more created this crisis in the NFL than he did the North Korean thermonuclear capability. If it is certainly a long time and strategical and unwise for a busy chief executive commander-in-chief facing he's got a whole host of inherited existential crisis, why the hell would he wade into this fray with the NFL? It's because it's a bigger picture. It's kind of a you're looking at what is happening as society as a whole. It's become fashionable for all of the elitists in Hollywood. They're making this stand. Hey, I need to say something about this. Donald Trump is evil, evil, evil. But then movie revenue is down, is at an all-time low.
It's
Audience numbers are down,
terribly
year. There's a reason for this. It is because the American people are catching on. Okay, I've preached this a long time. That to a point when the progressive bullshit becomes too much. And I think, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we have reached that breaking point. Because the majority of the American people still identify as being pretty much in the central of the political spectrum. The majority of Americans actually identify as being, guess what, folks? The evil C word, conservative. Think about that. Hopefully, common sense is kicking back in here a little bit, BZ, and we're at that breaking point where enough is enough. The NFL had a lot of problems to begin with, especially dealing with different brain injuries and stuff like that. So they were having to face different off-field issues, declining ratings, declining revenue, et cetera, let alone to have to deal with the political, aspect. Folks, there's an old saying, you never mix politics and sports. I've been a sports reporter for a long time as well, and people are even more passionate about sports than they are politics. And when you start putting the two together, it's not a good mix. And usually the fans, stop and think about this. Normally, people use movies, TV, sports as an escape from what's happening in life. That's the last place they want to see this stuff, BZ.
You got it. I thank you. Again, get out of my head, Dan. There's only room in here for me, all right? I have NSCB, non-specific cranial buzzing. You don't want to be in here. You don't want to partake of that. And I was going to make a point. In 1929, 30, 31, 32, people went to the movies because life around them was absolutely terrible. They went to the movies for an escape. They didn't want to be reminded of all the terrible shite that was going on around them. I can back up just like you did and say it's the exact same thing for sports. People want to escape. When they go to a coliseum, when they go to a stadium, when they watch it on television, that's exactly what they want. When they watch shows on television, they want an escape as well. And just when you think that some people may sort of get it, they don't, and they're doing the exact same thing that the Democrats did, is they're doubling down on stupid. The American media maggots, the newspapers, etc., are deciding that, our ratings, everything is tanking. We're hemorrhaging readers. We're bleeding cash. And let's see, what's the one solution? I know it's to move harder left. It's the same thing for movies. Where movies are going down. They're absolutely terrible. So what do we need to? We need to bring more political aspects into the movies. And now I was watching ESPN just because I wanted to see if this was true. I couldn't take it for more than an hour, for one thing, but I watched one of the ESPN channels in the Talking Heads. Would it shock you, Dan, to realize that the bulk of the time spoken was all about politics and very little about scores, individuals, baseball players, football players, the next game, etc. No, it was all about sports. And by the way, folks, if you haven't cut the cable, I just did this weekend, and when I called up, and I have no problem telling you this, I was a member of Dish. I called up Dish, and I said, guess what? Cut the cable, I'm done. Oh, we'll give you a great deal on this. No, I tell you what, here's the deal. I don't want to listen to your left-wing CNN anymore, ESPN. I'm tired. I'm done financing these fucktards. And I'm not going to do it anymore, so cut me. Well, we can give you a better deal than that. No, I tell you what, to keep me, you're going to have to pay me. You're going to pay me? Big silence on the other end of the phone. And the answer is no, of course not. We got about another 2 minutes left before we go to the bottom of the hour break. Folks, we're talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit Media fame. He is a media magnate. He's done it all in terms of media and journalism for quite a number of years. And, of course, we were talking about how all of this leftism dovetails into all of it. But, Dan, I have to ask you this. What the hell happened with the Dallas Cowboys Monday night?
Well, let me tell you something.
And here's the other thing. Yeah, the ratings on Monday Night Football was some of the highest they've been in some time. You know what? I can tell you exactly why that was. You have any thoughts about the Dallas Cowboys last night?
Well, let me tell you why I think the ratings were up. I think people were turning in like a soap opera because there had been, and now let me correct something about the statements that Jerry Jones had made.
Okay,
there's been a thing that's been floating around on Facebook that in different social media circles that basically the gist of this conversation is that Jerry Jones went into the locker room, talked with his players and coaches, and said, basically to sum it up, if any of you guys kneel for the national anthem, disrespect the flag, I'm going to fire all of you. Okay, well, in reality, that's not what he said. He did not say that. In reality, what he said is that along the same lines of what he's been talking about recently, and that was, I think it's in the best interest to support the flag, to respect the flag. That's what I'd like to see the team do. He never specifically gave any orders not for the team not to kneel, not to protest, anything like that. Now fast forward to Monday night, we see how that actually plays truth. And I think the ratings were so high because of the build-up. Is Jerry Jones going to stand by his words that he never actually said? And the team is going to stand through the whole thing. Well, what ended up happening was they kneeled before the national anthem, and then they stood during the anthem. That was their compromise to all of this, leading up to this. Of course, the fans, and then they linked arm in arm. All of the players, the Arizona Cardinals did the same thing. Of course, the fans there in Phoenix were not too thrilled with it, as they roundly booed both teams for their actions on the field. That ought to, if you're getting booed, that ought to tell you something.
That's called a clue.
But here's the thing: the Cowboys do not get booed in Phoenix. The Cowboys are extremely popular wherever they go play, with the exception of Washington, D.C., and maybe New York City. But when they go to Phoenix, they have a large fan base there. Okay, so they have a lot of fans there, so they don't get booed. They're roundly cheered every time they play in that stadium. They got booed because of the stupidity that they did on the field. So that ought to, folks, get a clue as to what is happening. So, bottom line is what we saw happen on the field with the Cowboys, quite honestly, was not really unexpected to me personally. Now, a lot of people were surprised by it because there was a misconception of what Jones had actually said and was actually saying and such. But if you had actually looked through it and knew what the real story, you were not surprised by these actions. But you kind of knew that Jerry Jones, being the marketing person that he is, the Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable sports franchise in existence. So he's going to try to protect that brand at all cost. And he thought that the best compromise was to kneel and then stand. And in reality, I think it backfired to them. And that's why the ratings were so high. They were waiting to see what was going to happen during that, because the ratings during the game actually went down as the game progressed. It was the opening moments of the game when the audience was tuning in to see what was going on, to see what was going to happen at halftime, what was going to be said, if they were going to talk to Jerry Jones, and all this usual stuff.
That's absolutely correct. Folks, we got to take a break. We're a little bit late for a break. Can you hang on over the break, or do you have to go?
You know what? I do. And I want to talk about, when we come back, I want to talk about if we have time, I want to talk about the lone Pittsburgh Steelers player and how he was made out to be a hero, and his jersey was becoming the fastest selling jersey in history.
Yeah.
Guess what, folks? He backtracked. And I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yep. There's more to that story. Folks,
yes.
Keep tuning in. Listen, we're going to be right back. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Tuesday, September the 26th, the year of our Lord 2017. We have been talking for the first segment of the show to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit Media fame, and we were talking about the NFL, and Dan wanted to kind of wrap up some things and talk about the Steeler that perhaps wasn't exactly what people thought he was. Was he, Dan?
BZ, I just caught the very last half of what you were saying, man.
Well, we were talking about, or I should say you wanted to talk about the Pittsburgh Steeler who wasn't the person that a lot of folks thought he was.
No, this was, this turned into one of the more interesting stories, I thought, from the whole weekend. And what happened is, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Alejandro Villanueva,
right?
Who was, of course, he is a veteran. He became the picture of solidarity. You see all the pictures of him standing out there by himself, with his hand over his heart, standing for the national anthem and all of this. And, well, come to find out, that was all a big mistake. The gentleman, Villanueva, came out later at a press conference on Monday and spoke about the national anthem protest that took place before Sunday's game with the Chicago Bears. He said that he was the only player standing instead of boycotting with the rest of his teammates because he unintentionally threw them under the bus,
right.
And he felt embarrassed about it. Let me tell you what he said. He said, "Unfortunately, I threw my teams under the bus unintentionally. Every single time I see that picture of me standing by myself, I feel embarrassed. When we came out of the locker room in the tunnel, it was a very small area. There was a flag or something coming off the field, so there were a bunch of Bears fans coming off the field holding that going in front of us, so it kind of held us up. I made my teammates look bad, and that's my fault, and my fault only. We as a team tried to figure it out, but obviously butchered it. People that are taking a knee are not saying anything negative about the military. They are not saying anything negative about the flag. They're just trying to protest that there are some injustices in America. I unintentionally left my teammates behind. I wasn't planning to boycott the plan the Steelers came up with. For anybody who thinks Coach Tomlin is not as patriotic as you can get in America, or any one of my teammates or the owner, I take offense to that. I made Coach Tomlin look bad, and that is my fault and my fault only." And so basically he came out and apologized for what ended up being a misconception of what he was doing. He was being, let's face it, and I actually held off on this. A lot of people on our side of the aisle in conservative media were heralding this guy as a hero for coming out, staking a stand by himself, saying, "You know what? I'm going to buck the trend here. I'm going to stand up against my teammates and stand up for the national anthem, when that was obviously not the case. And of course, Mr. Villanueva very quickly on Monday backtracked and said, "Hey, you know what? I was an idiot. I made a mistake. That's not what I intended to do. I actually intended to protest and not come out with the rest of my team." So, once again, as kind of a warning, always be very careful when you're reporting on stories to make sure that you have all the facts before you report on it, BZ.
Absolutely true, but I think you and I both well know, and I think White Mamba and Chat just mentioned it, Mike Tomlin and team pressure has something, this is what White Mamba was saying, Mike Tomlin and team pressure has something to do with it. Here's the video. I agree completely, 100%. What happened is the team between Sunday and Monday got to him and said, "You were not in solidarity with us. You were not in keeping with the great plan of Mike Tomlin. You were the proverbial turd in the punch bowl, and you better get your arse back in line if you want to have anything to do with this team. You're included as a member right now. We can just as easily hold you at arm's length." Or words to that effect. Guaranteed. Right. Guaranteed.
Right. Oh, there were certainly a lot of things, stand behind the thing. And even Roethlisberger has come out and said, "You know what? I think it was kind of a mistake to protest like this." And Roethlisberger came to his defense, saying, "We actually had a plan. Us as team captains were going to do this and this and this. Then we were going to come out and different things like that." Now, I think the original intent was all of the teammates were going to stay. I don't think he intended to come out. That's my personal opinion on this. I think he's perfectly honest about that. Now, certainly there was a lot of stuff in the locker room, I'm sure, being said, and a lot of bad blood taking place about making the team look bad, making the coach look bad, different things like that. So there was a lot of pressure to come out on Monday and stuff like that. Just the fact that all of the other teams did not come out that just had to stay in the locker room altogether and not come out on the field during the national anthem. They all did that in solidarity, and so it would be kind of unusual that one of the team members would break the ranks like that. And in this particular case, so it's kind of a he said she's type of a story like that. So you kind of have to take him at face value, saying, "Hey, you know what? I did not intend to do this." Now, here's the other part of me. I know he is a veteran, and there is something in you that just subconsciously he did what he would normally do.
Yep.
And that is come out being a veteran, and and that would go against everything that he had planned to do. He may have originally, planned to stay with the team. Because if you look at the picture, and I've got a picture of it up on High Plains Pundit, he's not that far out.
No, he's not.
From the walkway. You can see the team. They're just a few feet behind him. But I think just subconsciously, it took over. His patriotism took over subconsciously, and he came out and did what he's always done, his entire life. Growing up when he was in the military, he came out, put his hand over his heart. That's genuine. His hand is over his heart and stuff like that. He may have intended to stay in with the team, but subconsciously, just his normal reactions took over. He came out and did what he's always done because that, honestly, that was the right thing to do. So you kind of have a catch-22 situation here for the guy, being a veteran coming out. He's probably just reacting normal, but then he wanted to support his teammates, as wrong as it was. But so, once again, it's one of those things where, you have to look at this and say, you know what? Something wasn't right here. And bottom line is, these protests are not right from the beginning with. And I think eventually, because here's a little kicker to all of this, BZ. The sponsors are starting to drop the players. Okay? Now, players have big contracts, but sports, especially the elite sports athletes, they don't make most of their money playing football, playing baseball, playing basketball. They make most of their money from endorsement deals, from promoting products, etc. By big companies, Nike, Adidas, using their name to sell the latest shoes and sportswear, jerseys, etc. And you know what? When your sponsors start dropping you, and that starts cutting into your bottom line and revenue a little bit, that gets your attention pretty quick. And when the ad revenues start going down because the ratings are falling, and when the attendance, and when you have companies such as Dish that are starting to offer refunds on the Sunday sports football NFL packages, etc. When that starts hitting the bottom line, especially in sports, these types of things tend to go away very quickly. So let's kind of see what happens through the rest of the season. My prediction is, BZ, by the time the playoffs roll around, these protests are going to be a distant memory, and I think Kaepernick is going to be a distant memory in the NFL as well.
I wish I would be as confident as you, but I have to be upfront. I am not. I think this is going to assume a tsunami of its own. If we think it's done, I don't think we think it's done. I think it's going to continue at roughly this same rate because, guaranteed, President Trump is going to make another tweet on down the line. These people are going to feel like they need to rally the wagons and circle the wagons. And we haven't seen the end of it. We already have Sean Hannity, for one thing, saying that, you know what I do? I go to the Super Bowl every year. I take my family, my kids, and some friends. We pay a hell of a lot of money to go to the Super Bowl. And I don't try to use my celebrity to get discount tickets. I pay full bang buck for going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not going. Good for him. He puts his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds into what I'm kind of thinking is that, once the bottom line starts hitting this, I'm not one that says go out and protest sponsors. I'm not, and boycott this, boycott that. But you know what? There's lots of different things, lots of different forms to spend your entertainment dollar on. You don't have to go to the movies. You know what? You can get Netflix because that movie's going to be out, 4 months after the release anyway on Netflix. There's such a thing as college football that people are starting to pay attention to again. Baseball, NASCAR. There's lots of different things to throw entertainment value there. Here's the thing: these bottom line, and these folks are entertainers. They are there. They're paid to, although they are elite athletes, they're still in an entertainment venue, in the entertainment business, with sports, and people pay a lot of money to watch them do what they do. And when people stop spending that money, you're talking about an average family of four, somewhere in the neighborhood. After you've bought tickets, you pay for parking, and you buy food and souvenirs, it's somewhere around $500 per family of four. And that's going with the cheap seats per NFL game. Think about that. So there's a lot of money being generated. And when that money stream is cut off, and it starts with just one, then two, then three, then 100, then 1,000, then 10,000, and it starts to affect the bottom line. That gets some people's attention. And as big and brave as the owners were sounding, standing behind the players with their statements on Sunday, and some of the statements were absolutely priceless, gentlemen. But when the money starts drying up a little bit and it starts hurting the brand, the owners will take a different tone. And here's the other thing you have to remember about the NFL versus the NBA and Major League Baseball. NFL contracts are not guaranteed. Okay? Even though you sign a 5-year contract, the team has the right to cut your ass at any given time. Just ask Mr. Kaepernick how well that's working on him since he decided to opt out of his contract. with the San Francisco 49ers. So the NFL has, the owners and the league have a lot more leverage with the players than, say, Major League Baseball and the NBA does. Where the NBA, at least the NFL has not gone full social justice like the NBA is doing. I think the NBA, now, I don't think the NFL is going to implode, but I do think that the NBA is going to implode because there's just so much BS that the fans are willing to put up with before they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm paying to watch you guys put a ball in a hoop. That's what I want to see. I don't give a damn about your political views. Because they don't affect me at all. You're not coming out and working in my community. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You're not backing up what you're saying. You're just being a figurehead. And so I know you're full of crap. And so I want to see you play basketball. I want to see you play football. And you're starting to hear, and if you listen to the fans' reactions with a lot of the interviews they did with fans, the fans are like, this is bullshit. I want to see them play football. It goes back to what we were originally talking about. I come here because I want to escape real life. When I go to the movies, BZ, I don't go to the movies to see a real life documentary. I go to the movies to escape reality. I want to be entertained. I want to have the crap scared out of me. I want to cry like a baby. If it is a love story, I want to be moved, etc. If I want to watch a documentary, I'm going to watch the History Channel or something like that on TV, or the Science Channel. But I want to be entertained. The same thing applies to sports. You want to have something to escape everyday life, and that's what you pay the money for, whether you're watching it on TV, whether you are going to the game itself, or whatever. You want to have that escape, and that's why you get enthralled backing your team, and you love being with your team, because it does afford you that opportunity. You know what? It gives you a break from life, and as much as I love to discuss politics, be involved with what's happening, reporting the news, BZ, I have to have a break, or I'm going to burn out. And sports is one of those. I'm a very passionate sports guy. Like I said, I started out my career as a sports reporter. So this type of stuff it's beyond me, and it's a different tone. It's one thing during the '60s when you saw them doing the Black Panther's fist and different things like that. You know what? Once they did that, it was over and done with. And so you have to stop and think, and that was in a time when money did not play as much of an issue as it does today. But I think eventually the money is going to play a big factor in the loss of revenue when it starts hurting the bottom line, because even these players have to realize if the teams aren't making money, you know what, they're not going to get paid. If they don't get paid, they can't pay for that big house and that nice car and their mother's new house and stuff like that. And I think some of these players, when their mama gets a hold of them, starts pulling them by the ear saying, you know what, get your ass back on the field and play some football, they might start listening, PC.
Well, that's absolutely true. Folks, we've been talking to Dan Butcher, the High Plains Pundit, and Dan, of course, I know you got to go, but where can folks find you? Where can they read you?
Oh, man. Hey, BZ, first of all, it is always a blast to come on. I appreciate it. I love our discussions.
I do, too.
I posted on Facebook earlier today. I said, you know what, this is starting to become a regular thing on Tuesdays, and I really enjoy it. I really do, my friend.
I do, too. You bet.
But let me tell you something. If you want to visit everything that we do, just go to highplainspundit.com, and that is your portal to everything that we do, whether it's High Plains Pundit Radio, High Plains Pundit TV, getting a hold of us on all the various social media stuff that we're on. That's the place to do it. Just go to highplainspundit.com, and that you can get to us everywhere, to Facebook, Twitter, if you use Google Plus, if you do Instagram, whatever. If you want to subscribe to our daily newsletter is now over somewhere around 54,000 subscribers.
Holy crap!
So if you want to subscribe to that, you can go to the website and you can subscribe to the daily newsletter that goes out and is delivered to your email about 4 o'clock every morning. So, but anyway, highplainspundit.com, my friend.
Thank you ever so kindly, Dan. Thank you for your time. And again, we blew through just about an entire hour. But again, like you say, I enjoyed the hell out of it. Folks, you were listening to Dan Butcher of High Plains Pundit fame. He is a media magnate, knows just about everything that you can possibly know about the media all across the fruited plain. And if Dan can end up making it every Tuesday, I'll tell you what, I think that would be a wonderful thing, at least a minimum half hour talking to Dan, because I know that Dan is very educated, knowledgeable, has incredible training, education, experience in all things politics, in all things media. I have it on good faith that Dan goes to bed about 1 a.m. and wakes up about 2:15 a.m., because there's so much news out there and there's so much stuff to do. So thank you ever kindly, Dan Butcher. Folks, it's almost
my friend.
It's almost the top of the hour, and because it's the top of the hour, almost the top of the hour, it's time for BZ to cork off. And I think you knew that I was going to do this anyway, because of the nature of the post that I wrote. And whereas Dan was just a bit measured, and I can't utilize the word conciliatory. He wasn't conciliatory, that's for certain. But I have to say now, and I'm going to do this for about 2 minutes. We're going to come to the top of the hour break. I'm going to do this for about 2 minutes, and I'm going to start in this way because absolutely I have to say it's official. As far as BZ is concerned, fuck the NFL. You just drew your final line with me, National Football League. You and your sponsors, you left us sycophants at ESPN. As far as I'm concerned, you can all go to hell. You're dead to me. You're absolutely dead to me. And remember when this happened? Remember when this guy wanted to wear some shoes? Let's see, who was this guy? He was a Tennessee Titans player named Avery Williamson, who happened to be threatened by the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell when he wanted to wear a pair of shoes with a 9/11 logo on it, and he wanted to wear them in honor of 9/11. No, that didn't happen. You also remember, go back a little bit in time. Remember when NFL Commissioner Goodell refused to allow, this was just last year in 2016, he refused to allow the Dallas Cowboys to wear a little bitty sticker on their helmets just adjacent the NFL logo, honoring the 5 murdered Dallas police officers in the middle of 2016. You remember that? Because I certainly do. And I wrote about it in August of last year, as a matter of fact. It was a completely inoffensive sticker. It had to be removed. It was a 5-pointed star, with each point representing one of the murdered officers. From the NewYorkDailyNews.com. This is from the original story. NFL rejects Cowboys' petition to wear helmet decal memorializing Dallas officers that were killed. The NFL has gone from the No Fun League to the No Feelings League. According to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Dallas Cowboys filed a petition for permission to wear a helmet decal memorializing the 5 officers killed in a tragic shooting in Dallas back in July of last year. The decal featured a star similar to the one featured prominently in the Dallas PD logo, with a black circle around it and the phrase "Arm in Arm" to signify support for the police and the Dallas community after the tragedy. The Cowboys opened up training camp while walking with their arms interlocked with members of the Dallas Police Department. Absolutely wonderful. The team has worn the decal on its helmets during training camp, but will now have to be removed. According to the Star-Telegram, well, they were removed. Cowboys VP Stephen Jones said the league had already rejected the team's petition to wear it during the regular season, but extended the ban to the preseason as well. They expanded the ban to the preseason as well. Here's the translation. No. Not just no, but hell no. And that's how law enforcement is treated by the NFL. Isn't that wonderful? It's the top of the hour. We're going to go to a break. And if you thought that was incisive, you haven't heard a thing yet. You haven't heard half of the story about what's going on in the NFL right now. You might get to the point where if you're wearing headphones, you're going to take them off. And if you have the volume up on the show, you might want to consider turning it down.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid crap.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Tuesday edition, the September 26th edition of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, the year of our Lord 2017. We were talking essentially with Dan Butcher about all things NFL and how everything has become politicized. Unfortunately, that's the incredible truth today. Politics is everything. But anyone out there think about this in terms of the slightest bit of hypocrisy? Anyone? Anywhere? Let's first start with this, okay? As the Ravens and the Jaguars decide that they're going to take a knee across the pond there at Wembley Station in England. And I called this Black Sunday, the 24th, just this past Sunday. So they were in England. They stood for the British national anthem, God Save the Queen. But they all decided, all of them, every player, that they were going to link arm in arm and kneel as our national anthem was being sung. This is from CNBC.com. In rebuke to Trump, Ravens and Jaguars take a knee in London during U.S. national anthem About 24 players, including Baltimore Ravens linebacker Terrell Suggs and Jacksonville Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette, took a knee during the playing of the national anthem before the start of the team's game at Wembley Stadium on Sunday. Players on both teams and Jaguars owner Shad Khan, who were not kneeling, remained locked arm in arm throughout the playing of the national anthem and God Save the Queen, the national anthem of Britain. No players were kneeling during the playing of the British national anthem. What a shock. Of course not. You know what? You know why? Because that might offend the Brits. The UK, Europe, they're a new and expanding market, right? So NFL, yeah, you're definitely going to need some new and expanding markets after this Black Sunday the 24th. And the question is, what did the fans happen to think or say of it?
But it makes me have a different view on them now.
Don't take a knee. Don't sit down. Don't do anything like that. You don't want to be here? Leave.
I don't think it's American at all. If you're going to do that, don't play in America.
For them to not come out at Soldier Field, that's dedicated to the military. And
Bingo.
for them to be that disrespectful and not come out on Soldier's Field, I'm done with it.
There's other ways that you can give a stance and give a say, and I don't think it should be through our national anthem.
I think it's shameful, and I would like to see those Colts players leave the country and leave the team.
Well, especially since, oddly enough, they decided they were going to kneel for the national anthem, but God Save the Queen on foreign soil. Well, that was worth standing up for, wasn't it? Here's some other reactions on Twitter that I gathered. Dan Bongino said, "These disgusting pieces of garbage disgrace our country on foreign soil. They're not worth a second of your time or a penny of your money." Wayne Allen Root said, "America waking up to find these disgusting, disgraceful, ignorant fools ruined game of NFL football." Andrew Kalista said, "Hey, glad the Ravens and Jags didn't fight in 1776 or 1812. Losers kneel before a fight, winners kneel after. See the lowlights tonight." Blue Collar Blue Shirts happened to say, "Ray Lewis protesting LMAO. The guy got off on a double murder rap." Mark Pentano said, "NFL takes the anti-American protest overseas. Players now take the knee on foreign soil." Robert J. O'Neill said, "Ravens and Jaguars kneel for the national anthem on foreign soil, but stand for God Save the Queen. Clueless." Heather Jones said, "How dare these pampered traitors take a knee on foreign soil? Stay there. Don't come back and leave your paycheck." Danny Camp said, "For NFL teams to take the knee on foreign soil is disgraceful and treasonous. Turn off the NFL." Ditto. Google CNN 175 Sue said, "This is game of foreign soil in London. Scumbags. All of them." Tim Bowden said, F1, by the way, for information, these motherfuckers make millions to play with a ball in a league that is 70% black, and they are oppressed people? Okay. And then there was this from from ESPN.com. And I'm going to read this because I want you to hear how this is crafted by ESPN and leftist journalistas. Steelers remain in locker room during the national anthem. In a sign of solidarity, the Pittsburgh Steelers stayed in the locker room during the national anthem before the 1 p.m. kickoff with the Chicago Bears. Now, this is Sunday. As the anthem began in Soldier Field, several Steelers coaches were on the sideline, including head coach Mike Tomlin, while the players were not present. Offensive coordinator Todd Haley, offensive line coach Mike Munchak, and running backs coach James Saxon were all spotted. ESPN translation, I'll translate for you. Race traitors and racists, every one of them. Players took the field within a few seconds of the anthem's end, just after fireworks launched, with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, one of the first players out of the tunnel. And then, of course, you guys know this. Alejandro Villanueva, who was an Army Ranger, served in Afghanistan. He was seen on the CBS broadcast at the edge of the tunnel during the anthem with a hand over his heart. That's been documented in videos, in photos, all of that. And if you look at one particular photo, and trust me when I say that somebody somewhere is going to do this, on that classic photo of Villanueva with his right hand over his heart. You notice in the lower left picture there's a guy, a black guy, and leftists. And he's got his hand over the heart, by the way. Leftists all around the fruited plain are attempting, guaranteed, to identify and locate this black dude who did not, in sympathy, kneel with everyone else. He had his hand over the heart like most Americans, and they're going to try to expose him, guaranteed. They're going to try to humiliate him, embarrass him. Perhaps they might even consider harming him. So Villanueva was outside. He had a hand over his heart, and people were talking about, you know what? The jerseys of Alejandro Villanueva, it went up. Well, Buck Sexton said on Sunday, ordered my jersey. It's going to be here on Tuesday. But like Dan Butcher said, wait. There's more. Villanueva says he has regrets, right? He feels like he left his team down.
Criticized it, but I didn't agree with it. What people don't understand is that people that take it to me are not saying anything negative about the military, not saying anything negative about the flag. They're just trying to protest the fact that there are some injustices in America. And for people to stand up for the national anthem, it doesn't mean that they don't believe in these racial injustices. They're just trying to do the right thing.
Okay, blah, 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 blah. Pablum words, bullshit. And I call bullshit on Alejandro Villanueva. Because here's what happened, guaranteed. His roommates got to him because they all, I should say his teammates got to him, and he was not in keeping with the great plan of making sure that everybody stayed inside. So when Tomlin, the coach of the Steelers, said that, I wasn't thinking about making any statement regarding that at all, I call bullshit on that too. He knew exactly what the hell he was doing. He knew it was a statement, and he knew exactly how it was perceived. So if he didn't think so, that intimates that he's a stupid man, that he couldn't foresee, that no one could foresee what this was going to do to the Steelers fans who, by the way, these days are lighting their Steelers jersey and apparel on fire. So this guy couldn't see what the ramifications were of keeping an entire damn team inside the hallway and inside the locker room during the playing of the national anthem. We're supposed to believe he's that stupid? I don't think so.
The biggest issue facing our country today is the tiptoeing and political correctness that has brought us to the brink of disaster in national security, politics, and sports. The question, do we have the fortitude, courage, and determination to stand up to those who threaten our values? Last night in Alabama, President Donald Trump did just that and took no prisoners on the sports issue and the NFL players who disrespect our flag.
Stop. That's exactly what he did. Donald Trump was elected because he speaks out and says things that many people are thinking and saying themselves, and that many people are too ashamed or too guilty or too cowardly to say.
Last year, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who, by the way, is without a team this year.
By the way, did you happen to hear why it is that, say, for example, he didn't go with the Seahawks? The Seahawks were thinking about picking him up, but his girlfriend decided it would be a wonderful thing to send a racist tweet to the owner of the Seahawks. And should it shock anybody that Colin Kaepernick wasn't hired after that? That's a really smart thing to do, Colin.
Began the protest by taking a knee during our Star-Spangled Banner.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Son of a bitch, singular, not the entire team, one individual if they were to deign to do that, because it's about disrespecting the flag of the United States of America, the flag behind which soldiers, American soldiers, fought and died.
Total disrespect of our heritage. That's a total disrespect of everything that we stand for, okay? Everything that we stand for.
The fallout was swift and certain. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell called the president's comments divisive.
You want to know divisive? Divisive is Roger Goodell. Divisive is the cowardly Roger Goodell. Divisive is the individual that cowers behind all the players. Because here's the deal. I'm going to make this a little bit later, but I'm going to Bigfoot myself up front. Is, you know what? You listeners, watchers, you who go to the venues and go to the stadiums, you don't count. The players do. So basically, this is Roger Goodell's way of saying, fuck you. I'll take your money, and you don't have any say in this at all.
Saying they demonstrated an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players. That the president exhibits a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent.
Yeah, they're an overwhelming force for millionaires.
In our communities.
And the owners? Billionaires. Oh, she mentions the community. Oh, stop right there. You saw a plethora of NFL players going out to help the victims of Hurricane Harvey, didn't you? Silence, crickets. And you heard and saw lots of NFL players throughout the entire nation go and help the people in Hurricane Irma, didn't you? Crickets. Yeah, because they're interested in helping their communities, aren't they?
Roger. Force for good? Are you sure you want to get into this fight? Now, Roger, if my memory serves me correctly, your stance on some of the NFL players and the women they batter is somewhat problematic.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to that topic yet, have we?
Think Ray Rice, Josh Brown, and a neuropathologist examining the brains of 111 NFL players found 110 to have CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the degenerative disease linked to repeated blows to the head.
So stop just for a second again. Roger Goodell and the NFL, the owners, and particularly the players, you can't see where this is going to go. You can't see that you just might tick off a lot of the people that watch you. You, by the way, I should point out, are discretionary money. You're not mandatory money, and you're money that these people can stop placing with you anytime at all. Hell, they'd probably rather go and put that money in fantasy football, wouldn't they?
Instead of mouthing off how you are a force for good, Roger, maybe you ought to get ready to reveal damaging information when the lawsuits start. Think Aaron Hernandez. And according to USA Today, NFL player arrests are not only disproportionate to the general population, but the violence associated with these arrests is shocking.
Oh, and that's a shock too, isn't it? I'm sure it is. You know, but here's the deal. Jeanine Pirro wasn't the only one weighing in. Lots of other people started to weigh in this, as in Kevin Jackson of the Black Sphere, for example.
Professional athletes blasting the president as he calls them out for protesting the national anthem and lack of patriotism.
This president tweeted just moments ago, again, NFL attendance and ratings are way down. Boring games, yes, but many stay away because they love our country. League should back U.S.
But our next...
Oh, that's terribly offensive, though, isn't it? It's terribly offensive to say that or even remotely intimate that the NFL should back the United States of America. Horrible, horrible, heinous.
Guest blames these players for social justice warring. Here to explain, Fox News contributor and executive director of the Black Sphere, Kevin Jackson. Kevin, good morning. Obviously, the president tripling down this morning in his response to Roger Goodell and other NFL teams. You say they're social justice warring. What do you mean?
Well, good for him for doing this. This has been long overdue, Pete. A lot of people in America have been talking about going to sports and only watching sports games, and these guys have said, no, this is our time to speak out. And the fact of the matter is, it isn't their time to speak out. These guys are protesting the national anthem, something that's been happening at games in this country since the beginning of sports. And suddenly, these guys now want to become social justice warriors, and for all the wrong reasons. So I love that Donald Trump has finally said, like he's done with immigration, like he's done with Obamacare and other political issues, you know what? The political correct nature of sports needs to be addressed. We need to start looking at this country and becoming patriots again, standing for the flag and what it means, and quite frankly, honoring the tradition of sports. Sport is a meritocracy where people have effectively, you get to play this sport because of the people that stand behind the flag.
Right. Kevin, when you and I were on the streets in St. Louis, very quickly, the protesters there wanted some form of local police accountability. They wanted subpoena power for a civilian review board, right? They had an actual issue. Do these athletes taking a knee, do they do anything for those social justice warriors?
Well, I think you know the answer to that, don't you? Yeah, because all these guys that decide they wanted to take a knee on Sunday, and trust me, as opposed to Dan Butcher, he thinks that things are going to turn around. I wish I could be as positive as that, but I don't. This shit is going to continue.
No, they do nothing for them. And one of the points I was going to make the other day when I was on was that these guys act as if they are running into these types of problems daily. They're not. And I would defy Stephen Curry or Kaepernick or any of these athletes that call themselves social justice warriors to name me the last person shot in any city, shot and killed by another black person or somebody else. If you care...
Oh, my goodness. Oh, you can't say that, Kevin Jackson. You mean these are nameless people that are disposable? Are you trying to intimate that black people are disposable? That's exactly what he's saying. Because as far as the American media maggots are concerned, as far as Democrats are concerned, as far as leftists are concerned, young black males in urban rat cages, they mean nothing.
They would care about all the crime that exists in every city in this nation. Cleveland, Ohio, I guarantee you that LeBron James can't tell you who got shot last night, and he wouldn't care. And Stephen Curry couldn't tell you who was killed in San Francisco, or any other.
And not by cops.
Location. But they act as if they care about this stuff, and they act as if there's some problem with policing when the real problem are the problems in the community that they should be solving. I'll give you one other point. None of these guys are going to donate one penny to the cities that have had to make massive payouts. St. Louis has paid out $900,000 to the family of Anthony Lamar Smith. Do you see any of these guys matching it? They paid out $1.5 million to Michael Brown Jr.'s family. Two people who tried to kill police officers got payouts, and you can bet Stephen Curry and those guys will not open their wallets to help the cities repay this money back.
Well, why should they? That didn't involve them directly. And besides, kneeling in an attempt to be a social justice warrior, to do something like that, is every bit as effective as Michelle Obama creating a hashtag for Boko Haram women who were captured. It's mental masturbation. It's masturbation in public, as a matter of fact.
Well, the president's saying this is about respect for this country, but some of the media are saying that the president is making this about race. This is just one example of that from the media. From an op-ed, it says there's something far more pernicious here. Both the NFL and the NBA are sports in which the vast majority of the players are black and the vast majority of the owners are white. When you make comments about...
Okay, stop about that stupid bullshit. Hey, do you see people in the corporate world who may be black, they may be white, but during their lunch hours, they're taking a knee? I don't see anything like that. All I do is see it in the NFL at this point. And 70% of the players are black. Well, get the fuck over it, because those are the correct statistics.
About how the athletes in predominantly black pro sports leagues should just be happy with what they have and not complain. You aren't doing it by accident. You really believe it. Your thoughts, Kevin?
Nice try for the lefties to try to pull this nonsense. Look, we know the overwhelming... And in sports, it's overwhelmingly minorities, black and some Latinos, not necessarily Latinos from the United States, but we know this. So this idea that suddenly Donald Trump's attacking sports for this reason is ridiculous. We have a president who's standing up for the flag in America, and we have leftists attacking him. We have young black kids who've gotten an opportunity to do something that people would dream to do.
Sports is one of the most egalitarian venues that you will ever see on the planet. It is a complete meritocracy. If you run faster, catch the balls more frequently than anybody else, you're going to get the damn job.
And they would happily stand with their hands over their heart to celebrate a nation that would allow that. And suddenly, the president is the bad guy, the sports are the bad guys, the white guys who hire these young black athletes in overwhelming numbers are the bad guys. You're not going to convince me of that. And America's not convinced. And I'm going to tell you something. It's going to reflect itself in the football ratings, which will be lower this Sunday, and ultimately in the NBA.
So you'll be standing today, what it sounds like, Kevin.
I stand every day for this country, Abby. I love this country.
Are you going to watch?
So
are you going to watch games today?
Opportunity.
Kevin, quickly?
I've quit watching football since the Kaepernick incident, and I did a social media test, and
Bingo.
many people like me have done the same.
Thank you.
Kevin, good to have you on
Thanks,
this morning.
Kevin.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much. You know what? Other people weighed in on the NFL issue. So why? I have to ask on Twitter, on Facebook, various venues of social media, who were the bulk of the people that were weighing in about this particular situation? The bulk of the insightful and cogent opinions were by young black males? What the hell? Here's one by a guy named C.J. Pearson, who happened to talk.
Hi guys, I'm C.J. Pearson, and today I have something to say in regards to Donald Trump's recent comments going after Colin Kaepernick, Stephen Curry, and, well, now LeBron James. The fact of the matter is that I've got to make clear that all these people are a bunch of bumps, not because they're not talented, not because they're not athletic, because I think it's clear that they are. Colin Kaepernick, to a lesser extent, he's unemployed for a reason. It's because he's not
Bingo, thank you.
very good statistically, but the other ones, they're great. They're great players, right? The thing is that I respect people who love America a lot more than I respect people who can dribble a ball and throw a ball than anything really.
This is a young black male saying this. He's going to be excommunicated from leftist central.
That's what matters to me as an American. I admire people who love our country, who love our nation, and are respectful of the sacrifices of those who...
This is proof that the bullshit that's being promulgated by the NFL is going to boil over. When you lose guys like this who speak out for America, you're losing.
Who have died fighting for our nation, who have shed their blood in pursuit of the idea of liberty, the pursuit of happiness and freedom. I respect people who respect those people, the people who have made the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of America and furthering America. I respect those people. So when Donald Trump attacks Colin Kaepernick and Stephen Curry and all of those sorts of people for disrespecting our country, I'm right there with him. And I've got to tell you, it's not a race thing, it's an American thing. It's about loving America.
It's not a race thing, it's an American thing. It's about respecting the flag and respecting the country in which you live. Ask yourself this question. You go up to the average NFL player that decided to take a knee. I wonder what they would say as in terms of why is it that you're doing it? Would you get unanimity across the plaza? Would everyone say the exact same thing? This is why we're taking a knee. I think you know the answer to that.
You don't want to see anyone disrespecting our country. You don't want to see anyone disrespecting our nation because they have no reason to do so. This is an amazing country that deserves every ounce of respect that is available. And for Colin Kaepernick and Stephen Curry to go out here and disrespect the sacrifices that, again, people have died to defend our nation's prominence as a shining city on the hill, then yeah, Donald Trump has every right to tell them that they are wrong, that their grievances are misplaced, and that they need to shut up and sit down and stay in their lane.
Perfect.
If they want to dribble a ball, go ahead. If they want to, run down a field and make a few tackles, then go right ahead. But when it comes to disrespecting this country, we will not have it. It's not about race. It's not about the fact that these players are black. It's about the fact that they are disrespecting America. That's the problem that I have. It's the problem that President Trump has. It's the problem that every American who loves this country has with all three of these men.
You know what? It sounds to me exactly like C.J. Pearson gets it. We're going to go to a break early. I might be doing a little bit of overtime. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon here on the SHR Media Network and also carried live on YouTube, on the SHR Media channel on YouTube, and also carried live on Facebook on SHR Media. Folks, hang on. Be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd, for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner, and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are again listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. We're talking about the NFL, and I promised there are going to be 2 really good audio cuts coming up here. One is from a guy called Terrence Williams, and if you know anything about Terrence Williams, you know that he's not a right-wing comedian at all. And yet, even he gets the buttery goodness, the hypocrisy, the irony of it all. He gets it.
So Donald Trump done grabbed the NFL by the pussy, and now they taking a knee. Ooh, they crying. He done grabbed them by the pussy, and they crying now. But don't nobody take a knee when it comes to black-on-black crime. And there are a lot of unsolved murders in the hood, and I'm from the hood. So don't get it twisted. A lot of people talking about Terrence, you can't speak on the ghetto. You can't speak on the hood. Oh, I'm from the hood, okay? My mom and daddy was crackheads. I was born in the hood, okay? I was born in a crack house. So I know what goes on in the hood. And there are a lot of unsolved murders. Every black person that shoots somebody and kills somebody do not go to jail. They do not go to prison. They do not get locked up.
I wonder why that is. Is it because everyone decides that in the neighborhoods all across America, they're not going to tell anything to the cops because that's just what the hell you do?
But ain't nobody taking a knee. I don't see no knees being taken now. Terrence, we don't want to talk about black-on-black crime.
That's the last thing that leftists want to address. Then there was this. This was absolutely damn brilliant. And I came across this, I don't even remember where. I think it was social media. This is by a gentleman by the name of Brandon Tatum. And boy, did he absolutely nail this completely.
All right. I wasn't going to talk, but now y'all done made me talk. So look,
this is my whole thing about this protesting and this taking a knee on the flag. For all you people who just seem to not understand, let me clarify this for you, okay? It's not about the act of protesting. It's not about the act of believing in something and pursuing it. It's the way you're doing it. I don't know how many times people have to say this. Listen, what does the American flag have to do with your perceived oppression?
Bingo. Thank you. Absolutely. There is no causal linkage between this, and he makes the obvious point that none of the American media maggots in the United States get. They don't get this.
Well, what does the national anthem have to do with these issues that people are bringing up? It is a separate issue. The flag and the national anthem has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're talking about an anthem of hope and unity within this country that have made people become great, that have made the poor become rich and give people opportunities. You're just talking about a flag that represents hard work, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears, sacrifice. And the thing that makes me most upset is that you have these people who turn around and take a knee and want to attribute all the negativity to the flag and the anthem, but don't want to attribute the positive. Listen, if you feel that the American flag represents negativity and slavery and all this other stuff, then you have to give credit and credence to a flag that have given you an opportunity to go from cornfields and picking cotton to being the president of the United States of America.
Oh my, leftists don't want to hear this. Not at all.
Going from being segregated, can't go to proper schools, can't vote, taking you from that point to now you're making millions of dollars to play sports. And you know who's watching you? White people. I'm sick of y'all coming up with these lame excuses. The reason why America isn't, listen, Martin Luther King had support, you could call it bipartisan support. He had support on both sides, from people in the movement and people outside of the movement, because he did it with respect.
Martin Luther King, by the way, initially was what? All right, that's right, a Republican.
He did it without robbing Peter to pay Paul. He did it with integrity. He did it with a mission. He did it with tangible goals that were achievable through hope, faith, and dedication, and unity and connectivity between all of us. These clowns are doing stuff off of trendiness. This is trendy. The issues they're talking about have nothing to do with the flag. You can address those issues at another venue. If you really care about black lives, you don't need to be taking a knee. You need to be out there doing something in the community. If you care about oppression, if you care about laws, then you need to be voting. You need to be putting yourself in position to assist in passing legislation. And one of y'all need to take the step and say, okay, well, I'm going to join the police department.
Oh my God, did he just say that blacks need to join the police department and actually put themselves where their mouths are?
Do something about it. Quit taking a knee and protesting and crying like a baby. Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is pissing people off. That's all.
As far as I know, cops don't make a couple of $1 million a year. You know, that would seriously impact the budgets. You have to realize.
What are you doing? I asked the person that people cannot answer this question. What has happened since Colin Kaepernick took the first knee? What has happened? Have unemployment changed in the black community?
Nope.
Have black on black crime changed? Have police stopped shooting black people?
Well, I have some stats about that, but continue.
Tell me what has changed.
By the way, you were cognizant of the fact that Colin Kaepernick began doing this under who? Oh, that's right, the great Messiah, Barack Hussein Obama.
Has the abortion rate dropped? Has recidivism changed? Has dropout rates changed? Tell me what has changed since he took a knee. Somehow there's more entrepreneurs, more opportunities, more jobs. What has changed? Nothing. Nothing has changed. Nothing is going to change. Stop whining like a baby. Suit up. Play the sport. Play the game. And actually do something about it. Stop dragging the flag in it. If you're going to cry about it on one end, but you don't want to give credence to it on the other end. I'm telling you, as an African-American man in this country, the flag means a lot to me. I honor the flag. I don't care if I don't like the president. I don't give a care about none of that stuff. I'm not going to disrespect the flag. I'm going to honor the people who fought for I can be free.
God bless this guy. Someone who's actually speaking the way you would expect, oh, that's right, most Americans to speak.
That's it. If I don't do nothing else, I'm going to honor those people. Presidents come and go. 4 years, 8 years, they out. And I'm sick of you athletes. I was an athlete. I'm sick of y'all trying to act like just because you played in the NFL, you play sports, somehow you're an expert on life. You have no idea what you're talking about. Listen, you play a game. This is fairy tale world. You suit up, you lose, you go home. You cry, you play another game. In the real world, real heroes, when they lose games, they don't come back.
Thank you.
When the game is over, there's no takebacks. When you lose, you die. That's real men. You making tackles, I'm saving lives. Don't come at me with that BS about being some sports player. You playing a game. You're playing a game. The people who die for that flag, it ain't a game. That's real life. That's real sacrifice.
These are words that no leftist wants to hear. Sacrifice, courage, the flag, the national anthem, sovereignty. They don't want to hear any of that crap.
Don't come at me with that. That's all I have to say. Y'all done made me mad. This country is greater than that. All you clown athletes, you ain't nothing. And I'm going to say this and I'm off here. For real this time. Listen, Donald Trump is a billionaire who's now the leader of the greatest country that ever existed. Cry me a river. He ain't worried about you crybaby athletes. You are here today, gone tomorrow. Relevant today, you ain't signed tomorrow. You have a leg injury, you are irrelevant. Remember that. Remember who paid your salary. Remember who's filling these seats that's paying you money. You ain't making money just because you're a good athlete. You're making money because people want to watch you. People are supporting you. And when you spit in their face, they will no longer support you.
Thank you. And that's what's happening with the NFL. And that's how it's being perceived by everyone else outside of the NFL.
When you talk trash, they will no longer be a part of that. You don't disrespect America to play a sport. The end.
Brandon Tatum, thank you ever so kindly. Thank you very much for that. Because as far as the NFL
Guess you don't want me to stop talking.
As far as the NFL is concerned, just like Hillary Rodham Clinton, it doesn't have a problem. Everybody else has the problem. It's everybody else's fault but theirs. And like Hillary, they lack the ability to conduct any kind of introspection or self-examination, despite Captain Obvious visiting them on a daily basis. Hey, remember last Thursday? Remember, here's the story. It's shocking how empty the stadium was for Thursday night football. The San Francisco 49ers Thursday night game against the Los Angeles Rams kicked off in front of a nearly empty stadium. Note to the NFL, it's already happening. Los Angeles Times reporter Lindsay Theory tweeted a photo at the time of the kickoff, which showed thousands and thousands of open seats. In fact, most sections in the photo have more empty seats than fans. And of course, it was brought up about statistics about the probity and the innocence of NFL players themselves. Well, go to my blog, and you'll have a list of NFL player arrests and various links. So you have to ask yourself, what is this really about? You should ask the question, and all of the involved players should ask the question, is it about this loose word, unity? That's what they're talking about. As some are insisting. Unity in what, okay, specifically? Unity in terms of only what those on the left are advocating? Is that your unity? Or is it, as I really believe and suspect, is it about what Colin Kaepernick originally stated? And that's this. What he considered to be the rampant and overwhelming gunning down by Caucasoid police officers of innocent and unarmed young black males. Except that premise is a fallacy, a complete fallacy. Police shootings of blacks have gone down over the years, not up. Here's an article from nationalreview.com, which has, damn it, facts. It's accurate and factual. Police violence against black men is rare. A few days ago, former police officer Jason Stockley, who was white, was acquitted of first-degree murder. He had fatally shot Anthony Lamar Smith, who was black, in 2011. Protests started in St. Louis, where the shooting took place, and Stockley was judged immediately after the verdict was announced. Although they were initially peaceful, they soon turned violent, and dozens of protesters were arrested, while several police officers were injured. Since the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, just outside of St. Louis in 2014, this has become a very familiar pattern. The article is not just about Stockley and whether he should have been acquitted. What the author wanted to do is talk about the underlying narrative regarding the prevalence of police brutality against black men in the U.S., which is largely undisputed in the media, right? According to this narrative, black men, they're constantly harassed by the police, and they're routinely brutalized with impunity, even when they've done absolutely nothing wrong. And there is, quote, you've heard this before, there is an epidemic of police shootings of unarmed black men. Even high-profile black celebrities, they claim to be afraid of the police because the same thing might happen to them. Police brutality, or at least the possibility that one is going to become a victim of that kind of violence, is supposed to be part of the experience of a typical black man in the U.S. Events such as the death of Brown in Ferguson are presented as proof positive that black men are never, ever safe from the police. Guess what? That narrative is false. In reality, oh my God, we can't talk about reality. Well, you're going to hear it. In reality, a randomly selected black man is overwhelmingly unlikely to be victim of police violence. And though white men experience such violence even less often, the disparity is consistent with the racial gap in violent crime, suggesting that the role of racial bias is small. Now, the media's acceptance of this false narrative poisons the relationship between law enforcement and black communities, obviously, completely throughout the country, and it results in violent protests that destroy property and occasionally even claim lives. Perhaps even more importantly, the narrative distracts from far more serious problems that black Americans face. That's the reality. Okay, so let's talk about some stats. Let's talk about facts, shall we? Because this is exactly what leftists don't want to talk about, and they don't want you to hear. Last year, according to the Washington Post's tally, 16 unarmed black men, just 16 unarmed black men out of a population of more than 20 million were killed by the police. The year before, the number was 36. Those figures are likely closer to the number of black men struck by lightning in a given year, considering that it happens to about 300 Americans annually. Black men are 7% of the population, and they include cases where the shooting was justified, even if the person killed was unarmed. Of course, police killings are not the result of a force of nature. The author was not claiming that these are morally equivalent in any way. But the comparison illustrates that these killings are incredibly rare, and if it's completely misleading to talk about an epidemic of them. You don't hear people talking about an epidemic of lightning strikes and claim that, they're afraid to go outside because of it. Say, liberals, leftists, often make the same comparison when they argue that it's completely irrational to fear that you might become a victim of terrorism. Right? Don't they make that argument? Yes, they do. One might retort that while it may be rare for a black man to be killed by the police, black men are still constantly stopped, and routinely brutalized by the police, even if they don't die from it, okay? However, even this weaker claim is false. False. It just isn't true that black men are kicked, punched, etc. on a regular basis by the police. So, you know what? In order to show that, this particular author used data from the Police Public Contact Survey. That's the PPCS, which, as that name suggests, provides detailed information about contacts between the police and the public. It's conducted on a regular basis by the Bureau of Justice Statistics and is based on a nationally representative sample of more than 70,000 U.S. residents 16 and up. Respondents are asked whether they had a contact with the police during the past 12 months. If they did, they answer a battery of questions about the nature of the last contact, including any use of force. Since the respondents also provide their age, race, gender, that survey can be used to calculate the prevalence of police violence for various demographic groups. The numbers in this piece are from the author's analysis of the data, the details, and the code that he provides here. They're consistent already with the 2015 report compiled by the BJS itself to the extent that the two overlap. First, despite what the narrative claims, it is not true that black men are constantly stopped by the police for no reason. Black men are less likely than white men to have contact with the police in any given year, though this includes situations where the respondent called the cops themselves. Here's the facts. 17.5% versus 20.7%. Similarly, a black man has on average only 0.32 contacts with the police in any given year, compared with 0.35 contacts for a white man. It's true that black men are overrepresented among people who have many contacts with the police, but not by much. Only 1.5% of black men have more than 3 contacts with the police in any given year, whereas 1.2% of white men do. Okay, so if you look at how often the police use physical force against men of different races, you find that there is indeed a racial disparity. But that is the experience is rare across the board. 0.6% of black men experience physical force by the police in any given year, while approximately 0.2% of white men do. To be fair, these are probably slight undercounts because the survey doesn't allow us the author to identify people who didn't experience physical force during their most recent contact, but they did experience such force during a previous contact in the same year. Okay, what about force? All right, further. Physical force, as defined by the PPCS, includes relatively mild forms of violence such as pushing and grabbing. Actual injuries by the police are so rare that one cannot estimate them very precisely, even in a survey as big as the PPCS, but the available data suggests that only 0.08% of black men are injured by the police each year, approximately the same rate as for white men. A black man is about 44 times as likely to suffer a traffic-related injury, according to the National Hospital Ambulatory Medical Care Survey. Moreover, keep in mind these tallies of police violence include violence that is lawfully justified. Okay? Now, it's true that there are significant differences in the rate of men of different races in terms of how they experience police violence. 0.6% is triple 0.2%. But although people often equate racial disparities with bias, this inference is fallacious, as in false. As can be seen throughout an analogy with gender, men are vastly more likely to experience police violence than women are. But while bias may explain part of this disparity, nobody doubts that most of it has to do with the fact that men are, on average, far more violent than women. And similarly, if black men commit violent crimes at much higher rates than white men, you know what? That might have a lot to do with the disparity in the use of force by the police. Do leftists think about that or talk about that? No, they don't want to talk about it. That's the last damn thing they want to talk about. Now, this is evident in the National Crime Victimization Survey. That's another survey of the public conducted by the BJS. Interviewers ask respondents if they have been the victim of a crime in the past 12 months. And if they have, respondents provide information about the nature of the incidents, including the race, ethnicity of the offenders. And that makes it possible to measure racial differences in crime rates without relying on data from the criminal justice system, in which racial bias could lead to higher rates of arrest and conviction for black men, even if they commit violence at the same rate. So, NCVS data from 2015, oh my God, I'm going to talk about stats again. The most recent year available suggests that black men are 3 times as likely to commit violent crimes as white men. Does anybody factor that into the equation? Do leftists want to talk about that? Do Democrats want to talk about that? Do the American media maggots want to talk about that? No, they do not. To the extent that cops are more likely to use force against people who commit violent crimes, which they surely are, this could easily explain the disparities that have been observed in the rates in which police use force. Now, that's not to say that bias plays absolutely no role whatsoever. It probably does play one, but it's unlikely to explain a very large portion of that discrepancy. And so, instead of consulting statistics, maybe folks should defer to black Americans' own perceptions of how the police treat them. At various polls, as various polls have demonstrated, black people are much more likely than white people to think that police violence against minorities is very common. But the issue cannot be settled that way. Since individuals have direct knowledge of what happened to them personally, you can trust them about that. But when it comes to larger social phenomena, people's beliefs are influenced by far more than just their personal experience, including the media. The far more compelling fact is that if you draw a representative sample of the population and ask each black man in that sample whether a police officer has used physical force against him in the past year, you'll find that it is extremely rare. Now, on many issues, leftists have no problem recognizing this problem. For instance, there's a cottage industry of articles deploring the fact that although crime has fallen spectacularly in the U.S. since the 1990s, most Americans believe it has increased, but that's false. Liberals are absolutely right to point out this misperception, but if people of any color can be wrong about this, there's no reason to think black people can't be wrong about the prevalence of police violence against minorities. Okay, well, that's enough of that article. Now let's talk to Heather McDonald. She's a significant author and a member of the Manhattan Institute, and she is pretty much the queen of law enforcement facts and statistics. She notes more facts. A recent deadly force study by Washington State University researcher Lois James found that police officers, listen to this, found that police officers were less likely to shoot unarmed black suspects than unarmed white or Hispanic ones in simulated threat scenarios. Now, why would that be? You know the answer. Harvard economics professor Roland Fryer analyzed more than 1,000 officer-involved shootings across the country. He concluded that there is zero evidence of racial bias in police shootings. In Houston, he found that blacks were 24% less likely than whites to be shot by officers, even though the suspects were armed or violent. You hear these facts? You hear them on a daily basis? Anyone ever make any reference to them? Of course you don't. It doesn't feed the narrative. An analysis of the Washington Post, consider the source, police shooting database, and a federal crime statistic reveals that fully 12% of all whites and Hispanics who die of homicide are killed by cops. By contrast, again, listen, by contrast, only 4% of black homicide victims are killed by cops. Oh, isn't this a sign of bias that blacks make up 26% of police shooting victims, but only 13% of the national population? Ooh, terrible, terrible. It's not, and common sense tells you why. Police shootings occur more frequently where officers confront armed or violently resisting suspects. Those suspects are disproportionately black. Oh, but you can't say that, can you? Absolutely not. And there's more damning facts that race apologists, racists, race and poverty pimps, leftists, Democrats, they don't want you to know at all. Well, yes, we are going to go into overtime, and we're going to be right back. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon on Tuesday, September 26th, the year of our Lord 2017. It's official. It's overtime. Be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying carefully, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the final overtime segment of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network. We were talking about stats, about blacks, and crime. And isn't that what Colin Kaepernick was protesting about in the first place? Isn't that why all these people are taking knees in the NFL? Well, I was talking about, let's look at the stats about that. Let's look at the reality. And now I'm talking about a Heather McDonald article. And it goes like this. According to the most recent study by the Department of Justice, although blacks are only 15% of the population in the 75 largest counties in the U.S., they were charged with 62% of all robberies, 57% of murders, and 45% of assaults. In New York City, blacks commit over 3/4 of all shootings, though they are only 23% of the city's population. Whites, by contrast, commit under 2% of all shootings in the city, although they are 34% of the population. New York's crime disparities are repeated in virtually every racially diverse city in America. The real problem facing inner-city black communities today is not the police. Oh, it's shocking to reveal. It's the criminal. In 2014, for example, over 6,000 blacks were murdered. More than all white and Hispanic homicide victims combined. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, who's killing them? Not the police and not white civilians, but other blacks. In fact, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. Repeat that again. A police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. No one will tell you that. No one wants you to know that because it doesn't fit the narrative. If the police ended up, tell you what, if the police ended all use of lethal force tomorrow, all of it, it would have a negligible impact on the black death by homicide rate. And that's shocking to think of, but it's true, it's accurate. In Chicago, through just the first 6.5 months of 2016, over 2,300 people, 2,300 people were shot in Chicago. That's a shooting an hour during some weekends. The vast majority of the victims were black. During that time period, the Chicago police shot 12 people, all armed and dangerous. Statistically, what is that? That's 0.5% of all shootings. The problem now is that crime is actually going up. But you knew that already, didn't you? Here's an article from UPI, United Press International. FBI, violent crime up in 2016 for second year in a row. Violent crime across the United States increased in 2016 for the second year in a row, a climb of 4% according to annual figures released by the FBI. The 2016 violent crime rate was 386 offenses per 100,000 inhabitants, up from 373 in 2015, and the highest figure since 2012. The FBI said last year there were 1,248,185 violent crimes, which included murder and non-negligent manslaughter, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. The report noted that those types of crimes increased across all population categories. The 2016 rate, though, was still 18% lower than it was, 18% lower than it was a decade ago. And the murder rate was 6% lower. The Justice Department said the data report, quote, reaffirms that the worrying violent crime increase that began in 2015 after many years of decline was not an isolated incident. What a shock to hear the truth. You know, I know why. I suspect you know why. It's called proactive versus reactive police philosophies. Because, you know what, you can only yell that communities are over-policed at law enforcement for so long before they begin to take you up on that demand to reduce. That's what they're told to do by the community, by their administrators, by the media. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? They're told you over-police. Well, if pretty soon, sooner or later, because they're people, they're human, they're going to start to take you up on that, and they're going to start to believe it themselves. And proactive law enforcement begins to drop. So, you know, all that said, why are so many people caving in to what appears to be protests that are based in ignorance? Remember Black Lives Matter? That was created behind the falsehood of hands up, don't shoot. Officer Darren Wilson. And that was proved to be false in Ferguson. 100 FBI agents descended upon that town, and after everything was said and done, Darren Wilson was exonerated. No one wants to hear about that. Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot. That's false. That's a fallacy. Okay. So why are so many people caving in to what appears to be protests based in ignorance? It's easy. You know it and I know it. The NFL is a business. And as a business, Roger Goodell and the NFL team owners realize that the NFL is 70% black. That's no shock. What this means is the NFL itself, as I told you earlier, the NFL fears its players. More protests, possible walkouts. Oh, my God. The NFL fears its players more than it fears you, the purchasing and attending public. You'll come back. You always have. You always will. Because, quite frankly, the NFL is counting on it. They're counting the greenbacks on it. They're counting the millions of dollars on it that you give them in your discretionary cash. Despite what leftists and anarchists are pushing, this is, at least for the time being, a free country. Right? It's a free country. So, players, as long as they don't have any contractual conflicts, the Dallas Cowboys may or may not have a contract that says something like that. So players, aren't they? They are free to take a knee and refuse to attend the national anthem as they wish. It's a free country. And the owners are free to support their players. And Roger Goodell is free to support all the players who take knees or refuse to attend the national anthem wholesale. And guess what? Just as I am free to say this on the internet, on the SHR Media Network, I'm free to not just disagree, but disagree vehemently as I do. And I'm free to stop watching the NFL and ESPN. I've pulled the plug. Fuck the NFL. I'm done with you. ESPN, I pulled your cord. I'm not funding you anymore. Go to hell. I'm free to cut the cord to cable companies who still make. The reason I did is because they still make me pay for bullshit. Things that go against my views. Having anything to do with, I don't know, say Disney, ESPN, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN Headline News, Comcast, CBS, blah, blah, blah. And I'm free to compile a list of advertisers who support the NFL. You want to see that list? Go to my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, and go to my blog post called Fuck the NFL. Can't be much more complicated than that. And so I'm free to publish all that information far and wide on social media, on the blog, on the air here at SHR. We're all free for the time being. So, you know what? You do as you wish, NFL, and I'm going to do as I wish, right?
I have some final thoughts for those NFL players who decided to take a knee or otherwise disrespect our country, our flag, and our American pride on Sunday. Let me tell you why the rest of us, black, white, and brown, stand for that anthem and salute that flag. We stand to pay our respects to the Americans of all races and ethnicities who have paid the ultimate price to protect and defend the greatest nation on the face of the earth.
This is Tommy Lauren, by the way. She's on Fox News now.
We stand to acknowledge our American brothers and sisters who can no longer stand and salute the flag or sing the anthem. We stand out of respect for the husbands, wives, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, and children who have watched their loved ones come home in a casket under that flag. That's why we stand. And why do you sit? Oppression? What about taking a knee to protest the shootings and gang violence in Chicago?
Just like I said, because these NFL players, they're so terribly oppressed, are they not?
The violence that has run the death toll up to nearly 500 so far this year. You know, that gang violence and inner-city crime our police officers have to respond to day in and day out?
Yeah, Black Lives Matter say Black Lives Matter, but according to leftists and Democrats and city officials in leftist cities all across the United States, as far as they're concerned, black lives don't matter a whit. They're about as useful as Kleenex, and they're great political fodder, aren't they? Sure they are.
The violence they put their lives on the line to prevent, and the time they spend in those communities to protect and defend the innocent men, women, and children caught in the crossfire. Do you sit for that? Or is the oppression you speak of as selective as your outrage? Football and sports bring Americans together. Game day unites Americans of all colors and backgrounds on the field, the sidelines, and in the stands.
That's exactly what Dan Butcher was saying.
Well, up until a few players decided to throw that unity in the garbage out of misguided anger for attention. Listen, our country still has...
Stop. Is that the issue? Is it attention? Because as I say, you could ask all of them that kneel or sit. What are you doing this for? You think you're going to get the same answer? Hell no.
Problems, but natural disasters like Hurricane Harvey and Irma prove that when adversity or struggle comes to our backyard, we band together. That's the country you're kneeling to disrespect, and we are the people of every color that you're spitting on. We aren't a perfect nation, but I challenge you to find a better one, and if you do, please relocate and let me know if that country pays you millions to throw a ball. You sit because you don't seem to understand what that flag and that anthem mean to the rest of us. But thanks to those brave service members I mentioned, you have the right to sit like a spoiled brat, but I also have the right to call you on it because it's not a social justice action. It's a misguided tantrum, and it does nothing to bring us together.
Exactly. These are kids. These are juveniles. They've been patted and coddled and told what great people they are when they're, in fact, pieces of shite.
It only rips us apart and causes a spectacle. But to those teams and players and fans that have the decency and respect to stand for the anthem, salute the stars and stripes, and respect our nation, thank you for your American spirit and love of country. It's appreciated by many, I assure you. You know, for some of us, kneeling on Sunday is reserved for prayer and to give thanks to God we live in the United States of America. From Los Angeles, God bless, and take care.
Okay, here's the deal, but even so, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than the NFL. You have to step back and look at the big picture. Even so, the bottom line is this. It's not about the NFL. It's not about ratings. It's not about attendance or ticket sales or viewers. It's something much larger. Because the first question that came to my mind when I started thinking about all this shite is this. How long is it going to be before sports and other entities decide that, you know what, I think it's simply too controversial to even play the national anthem at all? Isn't that correct? Okay, and I value honesty and clarity. So let's be honest, let's be clear. We know why this occurs in the NFL and why it is not only accepted but in many ways encouraged. It occurs by way of GOPs and guilt, all of that.
When whites become a minority, they might be treated differently than the way whites had treated the minorities.
I think, as a matter of fact, this may be a very unfashionable thing to say, but if you look at American history of the last 50 years, whites have treated minorities with the kind of munificence and a kind of generosity that is unprecedented in the history of the world.
Oh my God, this guy needs to go to absolute hell for saying this, does he not?
Whites are still the majority in this country, and yet whites have instituted institutions that discriminate against their own people. If you
can't say that either, can you? But you know it's true.
Want to apply to an Ivy League college or even to a state university or a community college, you think you're better off being a white male or a black female? Everybody knows the answer to that question.
Who's more desired? Who are the college administrators going to go for?
And that is while whites are still a majority. And this kind of unfairness is something that legislatures, state and federal, have been utterly incapable of abolishing. The only way to get rid of that kind of racial preference has been through state ballot initiatives. And how do these initiatives turn out? Blacks and Hispanics vote in overwhelming numbers to keep those preferences. And why not?
Why not? Why would you vote against yourself?
Well, when they become a majority, do you think they're suddenly going to think, gee, this is just not fair to those wicked white racists who oppressed us all those hundreds of years? No. Once they become a majority, what's going to happen to the white minority? No, I think that I'm not worried. If I were expecting the coming non-white majority to treat whites the way whites have treated non-whites for the last 50 years, I'd say go right ahead. Not going to happen.
It isn't going to happen. Because it's all about this. I told this to Melanie Collette. I told this to anybody and everybody that's listening. Because the bottom line is, you say it's about race and people make it about race. Even that is immaterial, because I say, bottom line, no one is equal until everyone is equal. And everyone is not equal right now. And it's even larger than that. Go up another level. It's much, much larger. It's in my opinion, about the total dismantling of this nation by leftists. This NFL, blah, blah, is just a small portion of it. It's about the removal of our Constitution. It's about the removal of our Bill of Rights via the installation of the Cloward-Piven strategy. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. And the subsequent rebuilding of the entire nation and the rewriting of our Constitution, eliminating the Bill of Rights. Negative versus positive rights in the Constitution. And rebuilding everything from the ground up the way they want to do it. That's what it is all about. But in the meantime, Black Sunday the 24th was the day the NFL pounded the final nail into its own coffin. They did it themselves. Lines are drawn, okay? I am pushback. And as far as I'm concerned, so fucking be it.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter @bzep, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, and my email is bz@shrmedia.com. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at reverbnation.com. I'm going to be talking to that group in the next 2 weeks. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust, you can trust. Thanks, of course, to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, and I thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thank you for being involved in the chat room. Thanks to Dan Butcher. Thanks for listening in podcast. If this is too damned late for all of you, God bless. Take care. And be safe. Have a great weekend.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.